Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's Young here and welcome to a Metal Gear Solid 5 gameplay analysis. Today I'll be analyzing the Gamescom 2014 Afghanistan gameplay demo. While the footage shows the same location and mission found in the E3 2014 demo, the player takes a completely different route this time, unveiling a couple of new gameplay features along the way. Before proceeding, I do recommend that you watch my analysis of the E3 2014 demo, since I'll be skipping over any information that I've already covered. Also, something I would like to mention is that analyses like these will first be published in article form on my new website, NASIAN.com. This will not only allow me to get information out faster, but the audience feedback from the article version will allow me to make the video version even better, so be sure to head over to the website and join the NASIAN. Anyways, without further ado, let's dive right into it. I've already analyzed the intro cutscene in a previous video, so let's skip all that and dive right into gameplay. The first thing the player does is bring up the iDroid, showing off some new features found in this updated build of Phantom Pain. For example, locations of interest are now labeled with symbols that can be best described as short, thick, upside-down T's. From what I can tell, all locations marked with this symbol seem to contain buildings and edifices, most of them likely ransacked by Soviet invasion. Any signs of life that players may find in these locations will likely be those of Soviet patrols and perhaps some POWs. Another new addition to the iDroid's map is that it now shows the location of Snake's horse through a green marker that currently resides below the arrow marker indicating Snake's position. As you can see from this later part of the footage, the green marker is essentially a miniature Diamond Dog's logo. After placing a map marker, the player begins to move towards his target objective. Along the way, we are shown early signs that the AI pattern in this playthrough has changed. Two soldiers who were patrolling the small building in the E3 2014 demo are no longer there. According to the developer commentary, the advanced AI capabilities of the Fox engine allow enemies to adapt to player actions and playstyles, so we are likely seeing one example of this. As the player zooms in using the binoculars, you may notice that the L2 prompt has been changed from place marker to place remove marker. It's a small and welcome change that makes the function of the L2 button a bit more clear. After the player notices a jeep with two soldiers coming his way, he brings up the commands menu to use the horse's special ability, Defecate. If defecating in Phantom Pain is anything like it is in real life, then my assumption is that this command can only be used a handful of times before the horse has to recharge, if you catch my drift. Now notice how the other options are grayed out with reduced opacity, indicating that they cannot be used. In this case, since the player is riding a horse, he can't use the knock action or the whistle and stay back commands. The game will smartly determine which actions or commands can or cannot be used based on current circumstances. The player decides to use the defecate command to leave a nice little surprise for the incoming jeep. The horse excrement puts Mario Kart banana peels to shame as it causes the military-grade jeep to aggressively spin out of control. It seems to be a very powerful tool for those who can take advantage of it correctly, which is all the more reason to believe that there will be limits to how many times the horse can defecate at a given time. After all, it would be somewhat ridiculous if players could go around laying poop traps willy-nilly across all roads and intersections to cripple enemy transportation. Hilarious, but ridiculous. It would also be incredibly unhealthy for the horse. After full-tuning the jeep and its two disoriented passengers, the player brings up the commands menu once more. Since Snake is now on foot, actions like knock and commands like whistle are once again available for use, and players can continue to command their horse to defecate on its current position. The only option that is still grayed out is the stay back command, which I believe becomes available only after players use the whistle command. We have already seen that using whistle will essentially call the horse to the player's position, but if for whatever reason players want the horse to stop in its tracks, they can perhaps use the stay back command. Think of whistle and stay back as go and wait, respectively. With the jeep taken care of, the player continues to make his way towards his destination, but along the way he encounters a goat. Notice how this one looks different from the one found in the E3 2014 demo. This seems to be confirmation that animals in Phantom Pain will be comprised of various breeds, each with different shapes, sizes, and colors. Wolves are also amongst wild animals that players will find in the wilderness. These wolves in particular seem to be modeled after gray wolves, which can be found in both deserts and in the country of Afghanistan. According to the commentary, the pack of wolves had their crosshairs set on the goat for nourishment before the player Fultoned it, so perhaps Phantom Pain's open worlds will feature active and simulated ecosystems and food chains. From here, the player makes his way to a vantage point that is on the opposite side of the one shown in the E3 2014 demo, scouts some guards, and then uses the Phantom Cigar to fast forward time to early morning when it's nice and dark. There's nothing of interest in these parts of the demo that I haven't already covered before, so I'll be skipping through all this until we get to this point. Notice how this is the same building that the player entered in the E3 2014 demo, but this time it took him around 10 minutes less to get there. After making his way through the building, the player makes an attempt to take out one of the guards using his tranquilizer gun, but his attempt fails when the dart is blocked by the guard's helmet. This is yet another example of guards adapting to player actions and playstyles. In this case, guards adapted to the player's tendency to pull off headshots using the tranquilizer gun. This is a great way to encourage players to try out different playstyles and strategies, increasing replay value along the way. Moving on, I would like to skip all the way to this part in which the player uses a custom cardboard box to take down one of the guards. In Phantom Pain, cardboard boxes can be customized with stickers, each of which will have different effects. For example, the enemy soldier sticker shown in a previous video will trick enemy soldiers into thinking that Snake is one of them, as long as they are not too close. As for the swimsuit model sticker being shown here, it will attract male enemy soldiers towards the player and keep them distracted for some time. Despite the game's darker and more serious tone, it still clearly retains Kojima's trademark humor. Kojima explained previously that the reason he includes humorous elements like these in his games is because he found that games that are constantly dark and serious can be tiring for players. In his experience, adding some humor within all the seriousness makes for a more balanced package. The player proceeds by approaching another guard and taking him hostage via CQC for interrogation. Since Snake's arms are busy holding the guard down, the knock function has been grayed out in the commands menu. Furthermore, missing is get down from the dialogue options on the left, which only becomes available when Snake is holding up a guard. Using the spit it out option, the player manages to get the location of the area's power grid. I think it's safe to expect that any area running on electricity will have at least one power grid in Phantom Pain, just to give players that option of disabling light sources if they want to. One way to disable power grids is by destroying them, as shown in this playthrough. Now, while shooting and destroying power grids does allow players to permanently disable light sources in the area without getting too close, it does come with the consequence of putting guards on high alert for an extended period of time. A safer method would be to walk up to the power grid and turn it off, but the drawback to this method is that it is not a permanent solution, since the power grid can just as easily be reactivated by enemy patrol. After the player destroys the power grid, the Soviet soldiers and command post begin to speak amongst each other in Russian via radio.
But the enemy is coming to investigate, so let's go ahead and hide in this trash dumpster.
Unlike in past Metal Gear games, characters will speak in their native language, and since Afghanistan is just one of many locations players will be exploring in Phantom Pain, expect to hear various other languages throughout the game. As the player treads along, he eventually walks past a mortar. While doing so, you may notice that the icons below confirm that mortars can be manned by the player by tapping the triangle button. Players can also choose to Fulton them by holding down the triangle button, which they can then use as part of Mother Base's defenses. These mortars likely belong to the Soviets, so expect enemy soldiers to take full advantage of them if players are detected. After a few minutes, the enemy calls in a chopper to help them in their search for the intruder. Notice how this chopper is the exact same model as the ones found in this shot of the E3 2014 trailer, confirming that the troops mobilizing in the trailer are Soviet troops. However, the circumstances surrounding the mobilization of these troops is still unknown. As the chopper passes by, notice the full moon in the sky. I wonder if the game will feature simulated moon cycles to give players a vague representation of time passage. Anyways, the player continues to make his way deeper into enemy territory and finally manages to retrieve intel about Kaz's whereabouts. Now, in the E3 2014 demo, the player found a POW in this building, but in this playthrough, he is nowhere to be seen. The only reason something like this would happen is if the player already rescued this POW in a previous playthrough. So my assumption is that the Gamescom 2014 demo is showing a replay version of this mission, while the E3 2014 demo is showing a first-time playthrough version. With the intel retrieved, as the player begins planning his extraction, he brings up the iDroid one last time. Interesting to note is this orange circular marker found near the top left corner of the map, which is new to Phantom Pain. The same marker can also be found on the top of the marked Soviet chopper, so it likely represents the chopper's location. As the player navigates the iDroid to call an extraction chopper, keen eyes may notice that new to the iDroid is an option labeled Buddy, which according to the description, allows players to request a support buddy. I would like to begin by talking about what kinds of support buddies players will be able to request. My assumption is that in the game's early stages, players will be limited to requesting trained animals. A large basis for my assumption comes from this early artwork of Metal Gear Solid 5, showing Snake alongside a Rhodesian Ridgeback. I believe that this artwork has been hinting at a support buddy system involving animals all along. I also believe that the support buddy system has been staring at us right in the eye for a while now. If you haven't caught on yet, I am referring to the horse. The horse is likely one of the game's many possible support buddies. This support buddy system might be the answer to what is the point of Fultoning animals in the field. My theory is that Fultoned animals can be trained in Mother Base and once ready, deployed into the field as support buddies. Amongst the confirmed animals so far, my candidates for animals that can be Fultoned and trained include horses, goats, dogs, and wolves. Each trainable animal would have unique attributes and skill sets that would service players in different ways. Horses, for example, can give players a fast, flexible, and relatively silent mode of transportation, and their special skill is the ability to defecate on command. Goats could perhaps be trained to harass and distract enemy patrol on command, while dogs and wolves could be trained to pick up trails, sniff out hidden things throughout the map, and tackle, pin down, or kill enemy soldiers. And whatever commands players can issue to their support buddies would be shown on the right side of the commands menu, which is likely the support buddy command section, represented by the Diamond Dogs logo, which is also used to represent the location of the support buddy, which in this case is a horse, but it could be a goat, a dog, a wolf, or whatever other trainable animals Phantom Pain may feature. And these support buddy commands would change depending on the animal currently acting as the support buddy. I would imagine that commands like whistle and stay back are universal, but commands like do it, aka defecate, would be replaced by other animals' special skills, whatever they may be. Also, the animal listed next to the whistle command would change as well. Then, in later stages of the game, once the support unit reaches a high enough level, perhaps players would be able to deploy human support buddies as well. What do you think of the support buddy system? Do you think it's accurate or am I reaching? Do you have any ideas for what the buddy option could be for? Let our nation know in the comments below. Anyways, the player proceeds by choosing the helicopter option to pick a landing zone for the extraction chopper. As he is doing so, you may notice that the area around Snake is shaded yellow in the map, likely indicating that guards in the area are actively searching for him. If Snake is detected, affected areas will be shaded orange, which is what happened in the E3 2014 demo. We also get a look at a zoomed out version of the massive Afghanistan map. This isn't all of it either. Notice how the map extends further towards the north and the west. Now, something that I noticed is that the map in the Gamescom 2014 demo shows these wide boundaries around the player, indicating some kind of perimeter. I hope these boundaries aren't restrictions of any kind. A game that restricts players to a mission area couldn't truly be called open world. Hideo Kojima promised self-contained open world, and I expect him to live up to that promise. Now, one logical explanation for these boundaries could be that they only appear when the player is replaying a mission. My assumption is that players tackling missions normally will have access to the full open world, but if they want to replay a mission that they have already completed, then they'll be bound to a mission area, since by then, the open world will have evolved due to player progress. After choosing a landing zone for the extraction chopper, the player proceeds by placing C4 on one of the enemy vehicles as part of his plan to take down the enemy chopper. New to Phantom Pain is that C4 will now show a placement area. After successfully taking down the enemy chopper, you may notice a notification on the left of the screen that reads "Extraction failed." This message pops up because the vehicle the player Fulton didn't make it back to base. Instead, it was used to destroy the enemy chopper, allowing the player to make a swift escape. The demo ends with the player successfully boarding the extraction chopper. Something interesting to note is that one easy way to tell the difference between American choppers and Soviet choppers is the placement of what are called position lights. Whereas the position lights on Soviet choppers are located on the wings, the position lights on American choppers are located on either side of their bodies, next to the door. And with that, the demo ends, and I would like to conclude this gameplay analysis. The most significant information that came out of the Gamescom 2014 demo was the existence of a support buddy system. Let us know in the comments below your thoughts on my theory of the game's support buddy system, and also let us know if you have any other ideas. And if you haven't done so yet, to be further updated on Metal Gear Solid 5, be sure to join the nation and subscribe to YongYea. You can also join the nation by following thenation.com. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you very much, and Young out.